Welcome to Reality NSFW. The monster gets to go to sleep. We got ourselves a new winner. What a crazy 2 hours. I know we're starting while they're in the middle of the reunion, but I think we got the important stuff out of the reunion already. But with me tonight, because obviously Matt and Johnny are out partying in Hamilton, Ohio for the finale party. I got Dan Montchal here with me. Dan, what are your initial thoughts on the finale?
I thought it was a pretty good finale overall. I think we got a lot of good stuff out of it. Uh, I still definitely have a few questions about the whole season as a whole, but I think overall it was very good. There never seemed to be, that dead spot on it. And hey, this is just why we need longer Survivor episodes.
Yeah, I agree entirely. I will say there's certain things I wish I initially thought I was like they're making the final five too long. They're not going to give enough time for final tribal. But actually, like now looking into it, I'm like, I think they gave the exact right amount to this final tribal for the viewer to understand, I believe, ultimately why Marianne won. Because I do actually believe this is probably one of the first times where I feel a lot of people were weighing their options on this jury.
Mm-hmm.
And it just goes to show in 2 seasons where we've seen everyone willing to share everything, sometimes concealing something can get you that win ultimately.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what also helped with making the final tribal the perfect length was, for the first time in 30, 40 seasons, we're getting the jury speaking before we actually get to the tribal council. So we get a lot of where their heads at, what they want to
Oh my god,
hear,
yeah.
which I think makes it a lot easier because you don't need to maybe listen to them talk at final tribal where you're still unclear. I thought it was just more clear, concise of where they were at heading into tribal and what happened there that led them to ultimately 7 of them vote for Marianne.
Yeah, when I saw that happening during the breakfast, I like took a step back. I'm like, I'm texting all my friends like, they brought back the jury speaks. They
Mm-hmm.
brought that back. I'm like, why was that ever gone? Like it gives you such a better idea going in as a viewer, understanding like how these jury members are initially approaching all the remaining people. Whereas you would get to some of these final tribals and you'd have people be extremely bitter and angry, and you're just like, oh, they're just bitter to be butthurt, but you don't know the reason. Whereas here they clearly define like Mike said he played an honest game, but he snaked me. He snaked so many people. Will he admit that he snaked us and that being the integrity and honest man was just an act? Or was it a mix of both? Like they wanted to hear it. Marianne, they wanted to hear, did she actually have strategy? What moves did she own? Romeo, can he properly explain why being on the bottom isn't necessarily a bad thing? Like I enjoyed this cast so much, and this finale really emphasized why. And I said to a buddy of mine, like, I feel like this is the first time in a long time where a jury actually took their role seriously and tried their absolute best to put their own personal biases aside to choose who they truly believed deserved the title and the money.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the other things, just going back to, seeing the jury speak, is they don't have to stand at, final tribal and say, Mike or whoever, I want to hear you say this. You have their opinion of this is what I want to hear. I'll give them the opportunity to say it. But if they don't, then maybe they won't get my vote, which I think was, you can point to several different instances at the final tribal council. And yeah, I mean, overall, it's really nice and refreshing to see, hey, at the end of the day, it is just a game. Like, I'm not going to take this personally. And it seems like for a majority of them, there's a pretty decent camaraderie there.
Yeah, and like we know there's articles out there saying like maybe some people still had some like within the jury had some issues with each
Mhm.
other that are still prevalent today, but we'll let them speak about that in the postseason interviews that I hope that we're also able to get and have some deep dives because there's several people, including basically the major. I would say at least 3/5 of this final five. I would love to have on here.
Mm.
Maybe 4 out of 5. Obviously, we all know the one that I don't want. Jonathan. Oh, did I let that out loud? Sorry. Uh, he wouldn't want to come on here anyway. Let's be honest. But let's start at the top. We're at Final Five. Jeff Probst does his usual finale introduction. It's the same thing from 41. There'll be 2 immunity challenges, a vote out, a tribal that leads into a fire making, and then your final tribal council. But he does start off with saying something that I feel like he doesn't understand, like, is a problem. And it's Mike and Marianne both have an idol. Those are the only things in play. So technically, only 3 people could potentially go out in this first vote. So this like immunity challenge means even more. I'm like, yeah, that's why you should have the immunity idol expire at 6. If you're gonna have final 3, you need to have a round where everyone is truly vulnerable. Because Final Four fire making isn't being truly vulnerable. Like I get it,
Mm-mm.
some people will suck at fire making. If I was out there with no training, I will suck at fire making. But like if you have an idol that you're able to carry all the way to the end, you are guaranteed, like he said, they guaranteed a 50% shot that at least one of them was going to make it to final 3, regardless of what happened.
Mm-hmm.
If like everything went as planned. So that's a problem. I'll just say that up front. What are your thoughts there?
Oh, yeah, I agree with you. I think that the idol should be done at 6, or, better yet, just eliminate the final 4 fire making. That way there is truly a vote where everyone's eligible. And I think also now it ended up not playing that big of a role in this season because Lindsay didn't ultimately win. I think if there's only so many, there's only 3 open spots to get, 2 are safe, then why put an advantage in the last meaningful immunity challenge like that?
And we'll talk about what that advantage was. I have a thought on what it should have been for this specific challenge, but we'll get there shortly. So we get the introduction, we hear the 5 people. I will say Survivor always does a great job with to get you pumped up, the great cinematography of it all, like the cutaways, the close-ups, the transitions between the people. It got me excited for this. And we start at night 23. They arrive at their new beach. They got nothing. Everyone's like happy, but like sad that they don't have anything left. And Marianne's like, I'm on cloud 9 though, because the jury just saw that I'm here to play. And Mike just guaranteed me his idol. So if he's true to his word, like I could potentially save Lindsay. I can send Jonathan out. And I'm going to be guaranteed a spot at the end because everyone's going to just want to bring me to the end. And I love that from Marianne. What I don't love is Jonathan's condescending ass towards women. And, like, yes, he should be butthurt because Lindsay voted for him. But, like, he wouldn't even give Lindsay a chance. She's like, what, weren't we supposed to be in alliance? But you voted for me. You voted for me, though. You voted for me.
He seems very much that once his mind's made up, it doesn't matter what's said. That's all that matters. Where, I mean, he still has to think as well as, in his head, he's this big threat or whatever. Wouldn't you try and maybe patch things up that you're at least open to working with Lindsay in the future? Something like that. I mean,
no, because he's threatened by her because she has proven that she can beat him and shit. And suddenly he's like, nope. That's the only reason why he betrayed her.
Yeah,
it's just like,
yeah, that's true. You started seeing it a few weeks ago where it's like, she's the only one that can beat me in these challenges.
But I loved Lindsay in these confessionals. She's like, I hate having to listen to his condescending ass and have to butt kiss him. Like, she was like this close to just constantly saying, and hopefully they would just unedited it, be like, fuck this man, get out of here. I hope your hair catches on fire and you have to shave it off. Like that's the type of energy she was bringing.
Yeah.
But I felt for her.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, she was in a rough position, and obviously that conversation wasn't going to make her feel any better. But I mean, if you're the other 3 that's not one of those 2, I mean, that's perfect. It's just, hey, I'm going to sit back, maybe fan the flame a little bit, and perfect. If one of them wins immunity, that makes it easy. We get rid of the other. If not, it's clear that one of those 2 are going, so we'll all be in the final 4.
Absolutely. It did make it a little straightforward, but you know what isn't straightforward? Jeff lied to us. He said only 2 people had idols. Romeo comes out and just says, oh, guys, I also have an idol. And Mike just goes, oh, great for you, man. You deserve it.
Yeah, I think it's at that point where, like, Romeo, like, can't you see you're destined to be in the final 3, just not the way that you think.
Yeah, not in the way that he thinks, but he hopes. And you know what? I like it because it at least showed like Romeo wasn't just doing nothing. Like
Mhm.
it's like he said at the end, it was self preservation. He was just trying to figure out how to no longer be the just in case vote, and like ultimately it's semantics because it was never going to be him at Final Five.
Mhm.
But I give him points for creating a fake idol and trying to do something to try to get everything off of his back. So that's great for him. Cut to the next morning, we get tree mail, and same thing as last season. It's a riddle that everyone has to solve. What you have to prove that you solved it by actually physically writing it down. Once you do, you can go find this advantage, the final advantage, as they call it. Uh, uh, Lindsay does great. Everyone else doesn't. Marianne helps sabotage everyone else so that Lindsay could go out and find this bench, which I love because it again shows like what Marianne explains in Final Tribal, where she's like, I've been playing emotionally. Like like there's certain things where I feel like I don't deserve to get to a certain spot, so I self sabotage myself and I let my emotions guide me. And at that point, she was letting them guide her, and I feel like it just shows in this type of game, no matter who you are, like emotions can run high. Emotions can lead you to make faulty decisions. It happened with Mike. It happened with Romeo. It happened with everyone on this season. So I loved this scene overall, and also the fact that Lindsay was searching for like an hour and still found it before anyone else solved the riddle.
Yeah, I thought that was great because you see Lindsay get it right away. Like, okay, she's off to a good start, but you keep seeing her kind of run in circles and not finding it. And so in the back of my head, I'm like, oh, someone's going to find it. Maybe she just isn't thinking straight. And everyone clearly points out the rock, like, oh, that's the toe. And so it was important to get that scene back of the four of them, three of them struggling and Marianne not helping. That you're like,
Yeah.
okay, never mind. They could be there for quite a while.
Honestly, it's like ultimately everything goes right for Marianne and she gets the right decision. But part of me was like, oh, I really would have loved to see Jonathan go at 5, have Lindsay there at Final Four with her. It would be great. This would be a fun Final Four for us. We don't get nice things though. But we find out it's a slight advantage for the immunity challenge, leading us to the Final Five immunity. I like the design of this course. I questioned some of it, and I wonder it's just because they realized they literally gave them no food, so they had to let them be able to get to the bags and then figure it out from coming back instead of having to figure it out both ways.
Yeah, I think they definitely made it easier. I know I pointed out with Matt last week that when they were building the stairs before, you could only bring one puzzle piece up at a time. And if you were wrong, all the way back down, where this time they were able to bring their entire like 4-piece section. So I
Right.
definitely think that there are, some examples like that and what you just pointed out where, let's make it a little bit easier for them.
Well, it was like my issue was always like I knew Jonathan had no chance at winning this because there was a puzzle at the end. But I was like, you're really setting him up to at least be the first one there because he's leaps and bounds. Where I'm like, the design's already made before the season's there. They don't know Jonathan's going to be there at that point, but still, like you saw how he was maneuvering through all that. It was a cakewalk for him. So Lindsay's advantage though was they all had to collect bags. They all were tied in 6 knots, but for her, only 1 knot was tied for all of them, which helped a little bit. I think the advantage should have been one of the bags is already there. You get to choose the path that you don't have to go. And then all the other ones are fully tied. You still have to do that because it's still six that are untied. You have one bag to start. I think that should have been the advantage.
No, I'd agree with you. I think that makes more sense. And I'm glad that at least isn't quite as powerful as it was in 41, where you got to skip that first half of the first part of the challenge. So it was like, okay, once you get that, you're probably going to win. So I think this, balanced it out a little bit, but still, I feel like if there is a more athletic Final Four that's here, I think I agree with your point that I think going to just picking one, getting rid of the path, pick the bag that you want, and then just let it play out.
And I know 100%. I'm getting rid of the planks.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, you get rid of that one. All the other ones you can manage.
Mhm.
Like one of them's literally just you pulling yourself. One's a rope bridge that would take a lot of skill for you to fall off of. One was like the little pads that like you saw Jonathan once again trying to reenact his monkey walk on that.
Mhm.
Helped him there. Didn't help him win, but it helped him there. What else was there? There was the bridge.
There was
There
like
was
the rope bridge or rope where there was just one hanging rope that
yep,
was
yep.
there. Yeah.
Which Jonathan literally just like could have tightrope walked. Uh,
Mhm.
yeah, but we actually do see everyone get there. Look, Jonathan and Lindsay get there early. Then surprisingly, Mike I saw like was fast on their heels, and
Mhm.
Marianne Romeo like soon after that. So like everyone does get to the puzzle. It on paper could have been very competitive. They were first showing like Jonathan and Lindsay were neck and neck, but then Jonathan just gets like completely stuck on a piece, and then suddenly Mike comes barging in and starts figuring things out. He creates the border, which like on a normal puzzle is fantastic. And I don't want to say like there's a right way to do this puzzle. Like obviously, ideally, you work from the bottom up and you don't make
Mhm.
the border and then the inside because the insides you have more chances of letting everything pop off. But I feel like once you find a groove, it's sort of just like you have to go with it, or you could completely just lose your rhythm.
Yeah, I think once you find a piece, you just have to keep placing it. And if the easiest thing for you is to get the border out of the way, I mean, I guess you could make the argument of putting those to the side. But I think, as you said, and we saw as the challenge was going back and forth, that anytime that someone had to really pause and, take their time to get a piece in, the other person was able to catch up because when you're able to place them quicker, it's just, I don't know, you're picking up on things faster and it seems to move much quicker in your favor.
But yeah, someone who claims to not be good at puzzles, and Mike, it literally gets down to the final piece, and he's able to barge his in before Lindsay can grab that final piece. Mike, the oldest person in the game, wins immunity, gets his lifelong dream of winning an immunity from being a lifelong Survivor fan. I thought it was a very touching moment. I was very happy for Mike. I got to meet Mike recently. He's a fantastic man, and I just felt so happy for him as a viewer and also now as a friend. I was like, yeah, this man did it.
Yeah, and it's really nice to see, when the immunities are maybe divvied up a little bit more because that's everyone's dream. Like everyone wants to say, I won individual immunity. Jeff placed the necklace on my neck. And so it's nice to see it. So I really liked how the challenges played out in this finale because you had two people that maybe didn't have their challenge moment can point to something and say, maybe I didn't win, but I had this great moment on the finale of Survivor.
Absolutely. Now it comes down to like Lindsay knows she's on the chopping block, and like, oh, also the winner of this got to win pasta, garlic bread, meat sauce, cake, salad, and red wine. I don't know how the cake really mixes with all of that. Uh,
No.
leave the cake where it is. Like, Jonathan, eat that cake up, man. Like, that's all yours. I'll have everything else. Especially like you, I won this reward. You get none of that red wine. That red wine's mine.
Yeah, but at that point, it's soak up as many of those carbs as you possibly can.
Oh yeah, garlic
What did
bread,
you think?
mine.
What What did you think of his decision to take Jonathan?
It makes sense because ultimately it wasn't said directly, but it was pretty clear that everyone on that island saw Jonathan, or that was remaining, saw Jonathan as a 0 vote finalist.
Mhm.
Maybe gets a vote from like a Rocksroy, depending on how he did it tribal. But to my knowledge, Rocksroy voted for Marianne. So who knows ultimately
Mhm.
how that vote would have went off. But I think a lot of people saw him as an easy beat at the end. So feeding him and getting him strengthened for an immunity where most likely Jonathan either goes against Mike in fire making and it is what it is, or he takes Mike because he's a loyal boy. He wants to bring Mr. Mike to the end and please Mr. Jeff. Um, you know, I feel like there's a path there where he feels like bringing Jonathan along. Jonathan will feel like he owes Mike in that sense, and then would just send Romeo and Marianne to do the fire making.
Yeah, I guess where you're going. My only thought was just if if you're not able to make that deal with Jonathan, it's just you'd think, okay, with Lindsay out of the way, not knowing what the upcoming final challenge is, he's probably going to run away with it, especially if you just fueled him. I mean, had it been one of the different ones where they're running up the stairs and maybe he still struggles with the puzzle, but he probably gets 20 minutes on the other three.
Right. Like ultimately, I think I probably would have just given it to Romeo.
Mm-hmm.
Let Lindsay and Jonathan bicker on the island. Or you bring Marianne and like really solidify, like, hey, even if you're lying, like, hey, let's do final three together. I'm still gonna give you the idol. It's a done deal. We're good. And then like see where that can lead you. I feel like Jonathan was more of an emotional pick because he genuinely enjoyed Jonathan on the beach, or at least wanted to pretend to enjoy Jonathan on the beach, and bringing him on reward would help that because he's so dizzy. He's barely eaten anything. As you look at Skeletor, that is Romeo. He's only 210 pounds now, probably. He needs his food.
All
Which,
he can do
like,
is
granted,
sleep.
big boys need their food, but
Yeah, and especially at this point, like it's one more day. This one extra day won't kill you without eating.
exactly. But I also make a joke here that Jonathan thanks God before thanking Mike for the reward, and I was like, "Come on, get your priorities straight. This is the game. God ain't playing the game, buddy."
Well, God made Mike, and I'm sorry, I'm not even going to
Hey,
finish going down that joke.
I know. Yeah. Oh, yeah. How gracious of Jonathan. I hope he actually did grace before eating. He's a man of faith.
0% chance.
And I just love that you pan to Lindsay, just like, I can't believe Jonathan gets to fucking eat and be cocky. Like, the dude quit. He didn't even try to finish the puzzle. He was just watching Mike. Like, fuck off.
Yeah, this definitely fueled more of the rage because I'm sure it did. I'm sure, Jonathan was peacocking around that island feeling like he was king of it. And that just speaks to other things.
Yeah, man. Yeah. If you haven't been able to tell by now, I'm still not a fan of Jonathan and probably never will. Seems like he does great stuff outside the show for people, but I ain't about his life.
Jonathan, second chances too. Alex will be your biggest fan.
I'll be your biggest fan to be the first one out. Oh my God. But, okay. So Lindsay goes and tries to pitch Mike hard, trying to make him feel guilty that like she has given him everything, like she has not lied to him in this game. Everything she committed to Mike to, she has done. It was Mike who turned on her essentially, but really on Omer, and she tries to play off like I didn't know what Omer's plans were. Like I was played by him, and it feels like you're punishing me for being duped by him. And Mike's like, no, we're good. I want you to be here. And Mike's like, I do want you here, but I also know I'd probably lose to you if you're still here. And now he's having this internal conflict of like, I just promised essentially 3 separate people my idol. He never promised Jonathan his idol because Jonathan's like, give me your word. He's like, hey. Hey, we're eating dinner right here. I'm giving you some pasta. Like, hey, eat your food. Eat your food and shut up. We got this.
Yeah, and I'm always curious to see because, realistically, once, twice a season, you see someone going and begging to the other person. And I think that just has to speak about your social game. How well do you know that person? How hard is the right sympathy button to press? And when do you overdo it? How do you think she did with Mike? Do you think she went too hard, didn't go hard enough, or there was just nothing she could do?
Ultimately, I don't feel like she had any path. Her only path was making Mary Ann feel like she needed her. But obviously the hidden information of Mary Ann's idol makes that harder because if people were aware of her idol, I think Lindsay's playing on Mary Ann's emotions to try to get her to use the idol on Lindsay because they're like, if we can fully convince Mike to use that idol on you, You use your idol on me.
Mhm.
We're both safe. We vote out Jonathan. It's a wrap. But I liked ultimately how Marianne approached this, where she was like, I fully believe Mike will play this idol on me. Now my direction is, after talking with Romeo and like going through options of like what's the emotional move, what's the strategic move, and like the emotional move is keep Lindsay, the strategic move is to keep Jonathan in the game for Fire making the take out Mike. But she's like, if he plays on me, do I play my idol on Lindsay and save her? But if Mike plays it on Jonathan, then I probably have to play it on myself just to make sure. And so like it was really this intricate process because she wanted this very specific thing to happen because it does give her some resume points by having someone play an idol on them.
Yeah, I will going backwards. I agree. I don't think there was anything Lindsay could do, but I think speaking about the editing, and they've been doing a good job, is you weren't really sure what Marianne was going to do. Part of you thought, oh, she's going to play with her emotion, and it wasn't until she made that last comment at Tribal about playing, between your heart and your head, where you're just like, okay, she's got it figured out. Like,
Right.
she's not going to do it.
Yeah, and I think ultimately she wouldn't have been able to do it unless she actually played that idol on Lindsay. Like, I don't think she would have had the votes. Like, it would have been a idled out plurality vote with her and Lindsay voting out Jonathan, because I don't think Romeo was going to vote out Jonathan at that vote. I think he was always going to vote out Lindsay to give him his best chance to go, which is a smart move for him as well. So we get to that Tribal. Jury looks shocked when Lindsay says she knew she was going home if she didn't win. I think it was more of like a sad shock because you hear them after Lindsay gets voted out. They're like, oh, I was rooting for her. I wanted her to go in. But it was this incredible battle of she was doing the things that gamers do, where you downplay your game. You downplay your strengths by saying like, Omer duped me. Omer played me. So obviously I didn't have a strategic pulse in this game. Or my social game was bad. I was great at challenges, but that's only one aspect of the game. Q Jonathan. Hint, hint. Challenges are only 1/3 of the game. I still don't think he gets that. But you do hear Jonathan, just because he wants to hammer it home that Lindsay needs to go, like, no, Lindsay, you were social with everyone. Everyone felt attached to you and loyal to you when you would just talk to them. You're down, like he was essentially just saying you're downplaying your intelligence, you're downplaying your social threat. You are a threat. Like, I think it is so weird. Like, I feel it was a bravado thing for Jonathan to get her out, but I would like to believe it was also like a respect thing where he's like, respect your abilities. And I worked with you, so I know what you're saying is bullshit. This is why you have to go.
Yeah, I mean, I'd at least like to believe that he was sincere in everything he was saying, but you never know.
I'm probably speaking more in a Mike mindset than a Jonathan mindset, to be honest.
But I was still impressed with Lindsay, despite the fact that she went home, because, all the way down to the end, she's essentially doing everything that she possibly can. It's just, there's nothing she can do at this point.
Yep. So we get more talk about that. Like you said, Marianne talks about voting emotionally or strategically, and you have to weigh those thoughts very deeply. We hear about like Jeff even gets to the point where he asks Lindsay, like, how do you stop trying? And she pretty much says, like, you can't, which leads to Romeo saying, like, the name of this vote is fighter. And it was sort of like Lindsay felt like good about that because she's like, I did fight. Like, I didn't quit. I didn't put my tail between my legs. It's just accepted the fact I was going home. I did what I thought I could. It just wasn't enough. There wasn't a path that would get me past this round. Because ultimately, we see Mike play his idol on Marianne, as Marianne believed he would. Romeo plays his fake idol and throws it into the fire, which did give like the jury went through a whole roller coaster there, where they're like, "Oh my god, Romeo had something." He's like, "A fake idol. I'm gonna throw in the fire," and they're like, "Damn it!" Like, we're like, "We wanted you to do something," and like you somewhat did something, but not really. And then Marianne, obviously, the shock was her ultimately deciding to play strategic, holds that idol, lets Lindsay go in a 4-1 vote. Lindsay gets 5th place. She's in the Ricard spot. If we keep comparing 41 and 42, I will say I'm not going to compare them as players, but I want to say I think out of this whole cast, Marianne's the most, or not Marianne, Lindsay is the most like well-rounded player. I feel like she's the one who, if you threw her into any random season of Survivor, she probably gets to this point like a majority of the time.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, she's obviously incredible physical shape, has done well in all of those challenges. She's been no slouch in the water, even times where they just wanted to highlight Jonathan, and it was like, Lindsay's right behind her. Like, it's not like he's out swimming everyone. Right. And then, I mean, you saw maybe she isn't a puzzle genius or anything, but she was in it at the end. She only had one piece left. So I agree. I think that she plays a decently under the radar game that's really good at everything, that if she's put in the right circumstance, she very well can win. Like, I think if Omar survives one vote and he doesn't go there and Jonathan goes out at 6, we very well could be looking at a Lindsay win, because Omar's still the biggest threat. He gets picked off. Lindsay's at the end and she wins.
I agree. I think a majority of this cast, I heard Phil from The Specialist say something about this, and I agree. I feel like if they ever do like an all-star season, like if they're gonna like reimagine Survivor, and like this was the Australian Outback of this new era, I also see it as the Australian Outback in terms of casting returning players. There's so many people that we have seen from this cast. I could see Jeff without hesitation calling them to ask if they wanted to do a second chances or an all-stars, any type of returning format. I think they're calling 42 before they call 41 at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think you brought it up, but going back to Australia, I believe if you take out the returning seasons, they've had the most people brought back. And you can see from pretty early on, take out, the first couple boots, and a lot of these people, I wouldn't be surprised to, see on the screen again in the next 5 years.
Yeah, I think essentially anyone who has made the merge of this cast will be on their short list.
Yeah,
except like maybe not Roxroy, but I could see them easily calling anyone else on this cast. But hey, congrats to Lindsay getting 5th place. She earned it. She played hard and played how she wanted to play. And I hope we get to see more of her soon. But we don't get anything after that tribal. We immediately go to the final 4 immunity challenge. Some motion. We all know it. It's the hypnotizing balls going down the cylinder chambers. They keep rotating from the left to the right, and you only have one hand to catch the ball, put it back in, and in intervals you add more balls. But we do get like the start of like more of that emotional journey for everyone. Like Romeo just wants to show that like he won't quit. Like he wants to show the girls that he works with that like you never stop, you keep going, you keep pushing, you keep persevering. Like Mike wants to do it for his family, show that like he can still do these things, like you can accomplish everything. Jonathan, one note, he's a physical beast. This is what he lives for, Mr. Jeff. Marianne's story though, like that was like very touching and like emotional, like, about her family, and like they're like never together. They've never been able to be in the same place, and like that, like being able to win this and potentially use that money to like get everyone back in the same area and together, it was like worth more than just having that money. I was like, wow, like so for someone so young, like she has a lot of like deep thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely. It's nice. Honestly, for that, I was somewhat convinced Marianne was going to win, but once we got that moment right front and center stage before the last challenge, I was like, oh, she's going to win this game. But obviously, it's a great story. You mentioned everyone outside of Jonathan. They kind of had their own personal reason and put their own personal touch to the story, which is great. It's what you want to hear going into something like this, that it means so much to everyone. Now, I personally don't like the final challenge, but the moment before was great.
I mean, I don't mind it because at this point, they've been doing this for a while now, where they've been rotating the final challenges, and it's not just a like who can last the longest. Because this is still a who you can last the longest. Like I remember watching when they had it for Winners at War, and I was like, it was very intense for me watching that. I feel like this is a really good final immunity challenge to have because it requires so much focus, and it's sort of that it's like a metaphor for the game. Like no matter what's going on in the game, your eye always has to be on the prize. Like you can't lose focus. Once you lose focus, you're out. And it's the same thing you get with a challenge like this, where once you lose your rhythm, once you look away from the ball that's coming out, you are going to lose. And you could potentially lose that $1 million and see it slip from your fingers like those balls. And we ain't talking about Blue Chew yet.
Yeah, no, I agree how you get it is a good final immunity challenge. I just think that we've seen it so much. I mean, this is the fourth time since season 31, I believe. It was this one, Winners at War, Cambodia, and David versus Goliath. Like, let's mix it up a little bit, or at least put some. Now, people are probably sick of Australian Survivor's Better, but they had a similar ball challenge, and I believe it was Final Five, where you still had to time everything out better. But I don't know. I just like to see a little bit of variety.
That's fair. I think honestly they were using all the same challenges from the last season, and they probably just decided to switch things up. They would just rotate when a lot of these challenges would be used, because the immunity challenge last year was the merge challenge this year. So I think they just decided to switch things between the two seasons. But I get your point. It's amazing that Marianne knew the challenge name because it was originated in Tocantins, and she never finished Tocantins. It's the only season she never finished because she had to come play Survivor before finishing that season. That still makes me laugh. But Mike surprisingly goes out with one ball, and it's literally just because it slipped from his fingers. It just but let's be real. Unfortunately for Mike, I always knew he was most likely going to be the first one out, just because I was going to say because of age. Because this is something that needs to be very fast paced. And it's not like he wasn't keeping up with everyone. I just felt like he was going to be the most likely person to go out first.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely the earliest we've ever seen someone drop in that challenge. And I think it also spoke to what you were seeing almost everyone else did, where they were putting their palm right up against it and not letting the ball roll out to it. And it's just those little things that take your eye off of it, and boom, it's gone.
Exactly. Then we see Marianne drop when they're at two balls. Hers were too close together in terms of timing. So when she was putting the one in, she didn't have enough time to come back down to save the other one. That ball drops. She's out. So it's Jonathan, the biggest person on the cast, versus Romeo, the little person on the cast. But we should have known that Romeo was always going to win this challenge. Because as Mike has said a couple episodes ago, what is it that Romeo does?
Sits and eats. Oh, yeah, he just does this.
He puts his hand down, he puts his hand up. He puts his hands down, he puts his hands up. Like, the only difference is he wasn't putting the ball in his mouth. He was putting it back in the machine.
Yeah, I was shocked that he won not, take away everything else that you want to say. But just from the fact from early on, when you're watching his ball placement, it's just like, that seems so off. But I don't know if it was the camera angle or if he was just moving that quick, but it didn't matter.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. I was like, oh, at the beginning, it was like they seemed very close, but it was working for him. And I honestly still believe that. I think he was going to win this no matter what. But I think Jonathan was letting himself get too loose with it. Like, you would see him put a ball in and then like sort of like do a stretch, look away, like trying to like do something in his head. I don't know what the hell he was thinking about, but you should have been always, you saw him clearly lose focus. And once it got to the fourth ball, he allowed himself to lose focus, and it cost him. He put his hand on the wrong one, put it over to the right, came out the left, and he tried to catch it with his hand that was handcuffed to his side. And he's just like looking at it like, oh, I have to make fire.
Yeah, but I think even at that point, just because of his ego and everything else, he never thought for a second that he was going to lose fire. I don't think he was all that worried.
Yeah. So Romeo wins the final immunity challenge of the season. Honestly, great for Romeo. Like, a lot of jokes have been made at his expense this season, but you can't joke that he didn't win shit. He won shit, and he was able to get himself to the end ultimately. So, like, congrats to Romeo. He earned it. He earned that third place money.
Yeah, and it was nice to see him have a moment, because it was pretty clear that you're probably going to be that 0 vote finalist, as everyone has been predicting for weeks. So at least he can say, hey, this was my moment in the finale of Survivor.
Absolutely. So we're now at camp. Everyone's like making their fires, and everyone says like very clearly like Jonathan is the quote unquote like the best fire maker on the tribe. Makes them very easily, was making them very fast. Marion's like, I'm capable. Like, I can make them. I know the process. I know the clues to like make the fire and make a slow burn to get it up high. No one knows Mike's ability. Mike has never shown anyone he can make fire. I think he has tended to the fire at night, but no one has seen him start one. So it was like, I was like, oh my God, we're having a Tony moment.
Yeah, I thought it was great because, then you see him try to sneak off. He's not trying to make it in front of anyone. And it's just his first couple go at it. So like, oh, Mike, buddy, like, no.
Oh, yeah. But that was the same thing that they showed with Tony.
Yeah,
Tony
that's
was like
true.
making it. It's like, oh, wait, I'm struggling now, actually. Oh, I hope this doesn't happen. But like Marianne brings up the great point of like, you can be great on the beach. It's a whole different animal when you're at tribal council. But like we're having all these conversations, and we also see clearly Mike and Marianne are both targeting each other and trying to sway from me like, hey, Marianne's like, hey, bring me. Let's hope that Jonathan can just beat Mike's ass at fire. That gives us the best chance of winning this game. Then we have Mike, who's like, I know you're going to put me down. I'm not going to try to persuade you otherwise. All I'm going to say is, like, if you put Jonathan down there and I beat him, you have to go against me and Marianne. So maybe you put Marianne down there, which is like, once again, it's us as the viewers need to understand. It's Mike telling us no one's going to vote for Jonathan. So bring Jonathan to the end with you. Let me and Marianne go at it. It's one less person you have to worry about at the end. Because there's a 100% chance you lose one of us in that scenario. And then I love where Mike goes to Jonathan and he's like, hey, if Romeo gives you an out, fucking take it. And John's like, oh, you're not going to get in my head. I'm like, I know exactly what you're doing. I'm like, no, you don't. Like, he's literally trying to get you to the end of this game, Jonathan. Like,
yeah, it's just like, those mind games aren't going to work on me. It's just like, I missed where you mistook something for a mind game, because that was just a statement.
Well,
that
he's
should already be in your head.
He's the main character of his story.
Fair enough.
Yeah,
it's, I mean, I did like how Mike played it. And I think in his eyes, as he tried to play it, with Romeo, that, okay, bring Jonathan, I beat Marianne, and it's just the two of us battling it out. In the back of his head, he's just like, I'm there with you two. I win, hands down.
Exactly. So we see ultimately Mike thinks like, if I can win fire, it doesn't matter against who, I think I win this game. Like, I've had the most outward strategic game on paper. I'm the biggest threat. So that should be it. That should be what happens. I win fire. I win this game. It's just a stat check for everyone right now. Last 3 newbie seasons, discount winners at war on Island of the Idols, season 41, season 42 now. The person who was brought to the end and voided fire making altogether won the season.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, all three. All three have been brought to the end, didn't have to touch fire, win the game. The person who has won immunity doesn't win the game. More times than not, they have come in third. Nora came in third, Xander came in third, Romeo came in third.
Yeah.
So there's literally like this. That's the issue with the fire making challenge, and why I think after this season, among all, it could be the biggest reason why we could lose fire making at Final Four,
Oh,
because
don't
it
tease me like that.
deprived Jeff of having Jonathan at the end of the game.
I mean, if Jeff's going to make a rule change, it's going to be for someone like Jonathan. The
And
monster in his
how
pant he
ironic
gets when
would
he
that
looks at him.
be? How ironic would that be that that on paper conspiracy theory was they made the fire twist in the season just so they could save Ben Bergen, just for them to take it out because it costs Jonathan the game, or not the quote unquote cost him the game, cost him get to the end. Uh, what a world we live in. But we see Mike create the biggest bonfire I've ever seen in this game. I wrote it in a text to my friends. I was just like, Jeff kept warning about using the coconut husk because it's like, don't use all of it because it'll burn very quick. And Mike was like, fuck that. I'm gonna use all the husk and I'm gonna let this whole stage burn down in order for me to win.
I was gonna say Mike gave no fucks. He's like, I have the fire going. This is my shot, which I think that's what you should do. Is don't play if what if it goes out? Is I'm getting close to the rope. Give it that extra little bit of flame, and I think more often than not, you're not going to see a giant. Obviously, we've seen it, but you're more likely than not going to see this massive fire that just goes kaput in 2 seconds, because you at least have to be throwing other wood on there. And Mike was throwing everything he could get his hands on.
So my issue here, though, ultimately with the fire making is you can get exciting moments out of it. You can. I didn't get it this season. Like, it was impressive fire that Mike made. I was never on the edge of my seat watching this. I was just like, okay, this is happening. Because they took out the tense feelings that you would have about fire making because it was a tie vote that led to it. Like,
okay, well, Alex, we can't get the Becky versus Sundra fire making every season. You know, there's not always going to be as exciting.
Nah, you're right. You're right. Still, I think my point stands where I feel like they have lost the idea that the Final Four vote, although sometimes is very predictable, it still is such a intense and like thought-provoking round as a gamer, where one little mistake on that vote, you're making fire, or one little mistake, the agenda you wanted to happen doesn't happen, and now you have a harder chance of winning at the end. Like,
yeah, and doesn't it go
back,
against the best interest of the cast? Because it used to be, okay, the fan favorite went out at 3, and then they did final 3. It's like, oh, they go out at 4. And so it's like, you want these great dynamic players to go out earlier and earlier in the game. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. You want them out at 7 rather than sticking around for the last few episodes. I don't get it.
Yeah, and Mike ultimately beats Jonathan. Goliath was taken down. Goliath gets to go. Goliath gets to say the tribe has spoken. But I really would say like the fire has spoken, and it wanted to be extinguished as fast as it could.
Don't you forget about the special music he gets as well as he's walking up to get his torch snuffed.
Honestly, I wasn't listening to it.
Oh, they made sure to get it in a few times. It was that as he was going, and then in the final 5 challenge where, you know, he was pulling the lead, they gave his special, you know, challenge.
Well, you know what? Ultimately, while many people in like the super fan like community aren't fans of him, obviously the casual audience loves him. Because the casual audience only enjoys the physical component of the game and doesn't like it is what it is. Like, and I get it. Like, we haven't had someone who has made physical challenges look as exciting or someone who's been as dominant as Jonathan. I will give him his credit there. He made some of these challenges incredibly more interesting to watch. So I'll give him his kudos in that regard. But once again, I've said it all the time. The physical game is only 1/3 of the game. I really think he was below average in the other two components. He truly didn't understand what was going on during the game until the very end when it was pretty much obvious, and his plans were never good. Like he never had a fallback plan for whatever he was thinking of. He wanted to avoid talking with people and go fishing. Like, if you want to do the Rupert strategy, like, cool, go ahead, but you're not winning in this version of Survivor doing the Rupert strategy.
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing that I think you can count on, and there's very few exceptions where there's nothing that the casuals and the online, super fans agree with less or disagree with, however you want to phrase it. And whoever is that big challenge beast, the casuals are going to root for, and the online community is probably going to hate them. It's right. The same thing with Ozzy. The casuals would see Ozzy every single season if they could, where everyone else looks.
And the casual audience is upset right now because if the Golden Boy can't win, it has to be the person who's the solely responsible person to take out Golden Boy that should win the game. I love Mike, and I think Mike would have been an incredible winner. Mm-hmm. But I don't think you can truly be mad with either him or Marianne winning this season. Like, they were both two huge characters. Mike was an outward force, could have won this game if he had answered a couple of the questions a little bit better. I think he keeps some of the votes that said that they were originally going to vote for Mike, but left off of it because he didn't realize, he thought he played a very honorable, integrity, man of your word game, but was hearing otherwise from the jury, which went against his logic of how he believed he played. So it made him second guess some of his answers. And I think if he was able to have that understanding of, I wanted to play this, but this is what also happened, which caused me to not be as honorable as I would have liked, I think he gets those votes, and I think it's a lot tighter.
Yeah, all I would say is if you're someone who thinks Mike should have won the season, just rewatch the final tribal council. We'll get to it, but there were plenty of opportunities for him.
We'll get to it. Overall, despite what the vote was, I was a big fan of the performances across that final tribal council across the board between the final three and the jury. But Jonathan's out. We got our final three. Before we move on, let's hear a brief word from some of our sponsors.
We're all trying to eat better, but healthy breakfast doesn't have to be boring. Magic Spoon has the amazing flavors you love, but without all the bad stuff. And it's amazing as a midnight snack right before bed.
0 grams of sugar, 13 to 14 grams of protein, and only 4 net grams of carbs in each serving. That's only 140 calories per serving.
It's keto-friendly, gluten-free, grain-free, soy-free, and low-carb. And build your own box. Available flavors to build your very own custom bundle are cocoa, fruity, frosted, peanut butter, blueberry, cinnamon, cookies and cream, and my favorite, maple waffle. Now, Magic Spoon recently brought back their 2 super popular flavors, cookies and cream and maple waffle. Thank goodness. But they're back permanently. And when these flavors were first introduced for a limited time, they sold out extremely quickly. Now, I'm here to let you know you can get them again or try them for the first time. Why? Because they're delicious and indulgent.
Johnny, Magic Spoon has so many great flavors that I really enjoy, and even my kids enjoy them. We have the cocoa, fruity frosted, peanut butter. All these are really great combinations. They enjoy waking up in the morning and getting some Magic Spoon right off to start their day great before they head off to school. I think everybody listening should give Magic Spoon a try, or if you've tried them already, it's time to reorder. Let's get you some more Magic Spoon and get your day started right.
Hey, when I finish a podcast late at night, the first thing I'm thinking is not sleep. It's let me grab a delicious bowl of Magic Spoon before I go to bed.
So go to magicspoon.com/survivor to grab a custom bundle of cereal and try it today. And be sure to use our promo code SURVIVOR at checkout to save $5 off your order. And Magic Spoon is so confident in their product, it's backed with a 100% happiness guarantee. So if you don't like it for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Remember to get your next delicious bowl of guilt-free cereal at magicspoon.com/survivor and use the code SURVIVOR to save $5 off. Thank you, Magic Spoon, for sponsoring this podcast.
Thanks for sticking with us through the ad break.
Don't forget, for more exclusive Reality NSFW content, visit adfree.nsfw.com.
This episode of Reality NSFW is sponsored by Blue Chew. Say it with us, Blue Chew. Blue Chew is making waves and bringing more confidence to the bedroom by offering chewable tablets that can help men get stronger and longer lasting erections. That's right, we're giving away super hard dicks.
Blue Chew is a unique online service that delivers the same active ingredients as Viagra and Cialis, but in chewable form and at a fraction of the cost. Blue Chew's tablets help men achieve harder, stronger erections to combat all forms of ED.
Blue Chew is an online prescription service, so no visits to the doctor offices, no awkward conversations, and no waiting in line at the pharmacy. And it ships right to your door in a discreet package. The process is simple. Sign up at BlueChew.com, consult with one of their licensed medical providers, and once you're approved, you'll receive your prescription within days. And the best part, it's all done online.
Blue Chew's licensed medical providers work with you to find the right ingredient and strength for your prescription. Don't like swallowing pills? No problem here. Blue Chew's sildenafil and tadalafil tablets are chewable. Blue Chew's tablets are made in the USA and they prepare and ship direct, so it's cheaper than a pharmacy.
Hey, if you're looking to give that immunity idol to someone, or you don't want to be voted out of a crater, don't worry, Blue Chew's got you covered. So if you could benefit from extra confidence when it's time to perform, visit BlueChew.com for more details and important safety information.
And we've got a special deal for our listeners. Try Blue Chew free when you use promo code SURVIVOR at checkout. Just pay $5 shipping. That's Blue Chew, BlueChew.com, promo code SURVIVOR to receive your first month free. And we thank Blue Chew for sponsoring the podcast.
And we're back. So, Stage 26, they're getting their breakfast. They're all talking about, like, we have to be ready. The game's not done. They say it's done. It's not done. We have to know how the jury thinks. We need to know how we need to approach, which gets me so excited. Near and dear to my heart, they bring back the jury speaks. And we get to hear from basically all of them about like what they are looking to hear from each of the individual finalists. I loved this segment, like giving us an idea of what the jury is thinking heading into a tribal, so that the audience isn't blindsided by a juror's reaction and their questioning and why they're asking certain things, because it used to be just like, oh, they're bitter, they're butthurt, whatever. No, we know what they're looking for. I love this segment.
Oh, absolutely. And it even makes it easier to understand what the outcome was, because it's okay, this is what, so-and-so is looking for. So as final tribal's going on, you can start to make the mental notes of, Marianne did this or Mike didn't do this, whatever the case may be, and be like, okay, it makes more sense why the vote ended up being what it was, because you got their mindset going into it. And I think even if you're going to have a bitter jury, you can at least still show that, or quote unquote bitter jury, but you still show that, and it makes everything make so much more sense.
Right. So we hear for Mike, they are looking for, was he pretending to be loyal? Like, was that an act? Was that to be like, oh, I'm loyal, I'm a man of my word, just to go and cut their throats? Because if he did, that's respectable gameplay, and they would not hesitate to vote for him. But he needs to own the snakiness of his game that was hidden behind his true values of being a loyal man of your word type of fellow. We got Romeo, the ultimate underdog, always on the bottom of the vote, but was all about self-preservation. Jury wanted to say like his strength was that he was weak and appeared weak, so that people wouldn't see him as like the target to go out more times than not. They think, was he trying to get everyone to believe he was a goat just so that he can get to the end and explain why he isn't? And is it more impressive to be the cockroach rather than the elephant, the person who's out in front, You knew Omer had to make animal references one more time.
Not the last time.
No, not the last. Well, it's the same one later
Yeah,
on.
that's true.
But with more animals in there. But then with Marianne, she knows she needs to be honest about her game. People think she was just a vote and needs to articulate how she actually drove some votes or decisions. They know that there's more to Marianne that meets the eye. They want Marianne to sway them ultimately. That's from Drea. She's like, I like Marianne, but liking you isn't gonna get you my vote. I need to know that you did something in this game. And we get the fun fact of like there's one person from each original tribe at the end of this game. It's a diverse final three, not just in ethnicity but also in tribes.
Yeah, which you're surprised that Jeff didn't point that out. I guess that's more of a season theme where he just loves to hit on that at the final tribal.
Yeah, and it's another reason why this season worked was because, and what I fear about these smaller tribes moving forward, you hit lightning in the bottle because you managed to split these tribes up in a way where they all went equally to tribal prior to the fake merge, the earn it to the merge round. You're not going to get that every single time, and I fear that the reason why the editing was so good was because of that parity.
Yeah, I completely agree because that's a huge difference being able to spend, all right, we had pretty much even, shots at camp for all three camps for the most part through this game, where if there's that one dominant tribe, or even if, it's two and the one keeps losing, you just don't learn anything about them. And it's why if you're going to have the smaller tribes, you need to count on something like this happening, and you just physically can't. Like, you don't know how people are going to perform out in the challenges. So it worked very well in this season, but if you want to see examples of where it didn't, look at almost every other 3 tribe format season.
Look at last season.
I was trying not to signal that out.
I mean, like, I liked that cast, but you didn't really get to truly know a lot of that cast because if you weren't talking about the advantages, you were only talking about mainly one tribe because only one tribe was really losing in the pre-merge. So you got to the merge and it was like, okay, I somewhat remember some of the Yase tribe. I know Ricard and Shan, and then there's these bunch of people in blue buffs. Who are they?
Specifically, Eric and Heather, 2 of your final 4.
2 of the people that had a strong chance of winning the game. We still don't know anything about Heather, let's be real.
Yeah, well, I think the only thing that I learned was, from talking to Sydney earlier this season, still won't refer to them by name. They're E and H.
Oh my god. Anyway, we're now at Final Tribal Council. Jeff also acknowledges that the 3 components of the game, which I have said for years, all intertwined amongst each other. They're not truly different.
Yeah, it's good that, we can finally get to a place and he can admit that.
I do appreciate that he does now say, like, we're going to talk about the social game, the physical game, and the strategic game, because while they can overlap, I feel like that's the more appropriate way of labeling it. Because if you go by outwit, outplay, outlast, like outwit and outplay are the same thing. And outlast is just like, well, I'm here and you aren't. Like,
yeah,
there's not much there. So I would prefer it in this scenario where like the physical component was the small part of the game, as it should be. People take note that physical game don't mean shit. And it's all about your social game and your strategic game. And majority of my notes from Final Tribal Council involve the social questioning and the strategic questioning. So I will try my best to summarize everything that was said there.
No, I think you absolutely nailed it. We only got, I don't know, minute and a half on the physical, and that's all that we needed, specifically when it's these 3 that none of them can really claim to be this physical prowess. But no, it's a perfect example. If you're going out there, take a look at it. It's the worst of the 3. It's the one that means the least. And if you don't believe me, how many challenge beasts have won the game? Sure, there's examples, but there's plenty of other examples where it didn't happen.
Right. Like, truly the only like true like competition beasts of a season that I can think of right off the bat are like Mike Holloway and Kim Spradlin.
Yeah. You could
Like,
say a little bit of Chris Doherty with him being backed up at the end, but I think to a lesser extent because he survived some votes without winning immunity.
yeah, exactly. But so I'm gonna do physical first because it's the shortest. I love that
Get
he's
it
sort of
out of
just
the way.
like he's like Roxroy. You don't know anything about social and strategy, but you do know the physical game.
You love camp. This will be great.
I'm surprised he didn't go to Jonathan there. Be like, if we have never had a challenged competitor like we had Jonathan, you must have some thoughts here. But they go to
He wouldn't have been
Roxroy.
able to get through it without crying, so he had to throw it to Roxroy.
Well, Mr. Jeff. Well, yeah, we get the Roxroy, and Rox is like, I feel like, I think what you really want to say is, I did all the work. You guys didn't do anything, you millennials. Mike, you did stuff. You're good. Marianne and Romeo, you didn't do anything. What did you do? I feel like people answered it the best way that you could. Like Marianne's like, I did help. Like I was good with the palm fronds. I made Omar's prayer mat. I helped make the palm fronds or weave the palm fronds for the shelter. And she was the person who scaled and gutted the fish that they allegedly got. But we never saw. Maybe just a decent sized fish. That's probably
I don't
why.
think most people would be expecting much out of Roxroy or Tori, and which, to be fair, they're not. They get their one question or so, but I thought they made the most of it each time that they asked it, of being like, "This is kind of your perception," or "Tell me something that proves that this is you helped around camp."
And like we know that like they don't show us everything. They probably had questions amongst all three, but they chose to highlight them in their specific aspects there. Mike, obviously, workhorse around camp, was always helping out what needed to be done. They even say like he was the sole reason why they even had a shelter at the merch or the fake merch. And then Romeo's like, to be honest, never camped, never swam before. He decides to like avoid camp life altogether. He's just like, I won that challenge though.
Yeah, which I think is the best for him, because anytime where someone goes in and they're like, well, to be fair, I've never camped before, and they're like, well, that doesn't mean that you should be rewarded for it.
I also feel like Romeo probably knew like there's no world where I'm getting Roxroy's vote, just based off how I would think Roxroy would vote. He's most likely not going to vote for me, so I'm just going to make an answer that I want to say to tell the rest of the jury.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which, I'm fine with that. Like, it's your choice how you want to answer these questions.
Of course. And rather than, make something up that other people are going to say, hey, that's not true. Or, I don't know, I feel like, hey, just sidestep it as best as you can and just find a way to at least highlight yourself.
Yeah. So now we're going to move over to social. That's where they truly start off. They have Tori start us off with like, here's the perceptions that all of us as a group have decided, like, we all agree, we think of you. Mike, your perception is a man of integrity, man of honor. Shake your hand, your word's golden. Mary, don't want to lie in this game. Marianne, bubbly, young, silly, goofy. Felt like at times you weren't taking the game truly seriously. You were just like here. Romeo, quiet, reserved, got paranoid at times. Is this perception accurate? And this is where like Mike falters, is during the social part of this, where he's trying to say like, I was a man to my word. To my knowledge, the only time I broke my word was to Roxroy, and you see a lot of people like question that across the rest of the tribe format. Like Hyde feels like, no, like I was never against you. You went after me. You snaked me. Omar's like, you lied to Drea that we were going to go for Romeo when we were aiming for her, and it was your plan. So you lied to her there. You lied to me. Like, and Mike's not wrapping it around his head that like this is what they truly think of him at this point. Like he was a great social player, and they do, like Drea and Lindsay, like do give him his props. Like, you played an excellent social game. Like you're almost like twice the age of half the people on this cast, but yet you found a way to connect to people And he's like, yeah, that was my strategy. I wanted to get close to you because that's who I am. I tried to be a man of my word. I truly believe the only person I broke a handshake deal with is Roxroy. When I told him we would go for Romeo, but we vote him out. I hated that I was put in that position, but I ultimately had to play how I needed to play to survive. So he fell into that trap that you see other players fall into of they truly wanted to be a man of their word. It's like Coach. Coach wanted to be a man of his word, but he did make moves that weren't a man of honor type of move, which is okay. Like you can still be a man of honor, man of your word, but you do break it sometimes because no one's perfect. I think it's just hard to truly articulate that at like that state of mind where you have all this pressure against you. You have this idea of what you thought your game was, and then like going through this and realizing, oh, maybe my perception of myself is wrong here. Like, not that I'm not a man of my word, but maybe I broke more deals than I truly realized that I made.
Yeah, that was my biggest concern. And, I voiced that last week, was that Mike was going to go full coach and be like, man of my honor. And while he didn't do that, he went more half coach where he didn't live by the sword, die by the sword. But
well, I would say like he ultimately does admit, like at the end, he's like answering a question during the strategy part. He's like, you know what? Now that I'm thinking about it, like, and to me, it didn't come across to me as jury pandering. It felt like it was a truly like a light bulb popped up in his head. He's like, maybe I wasn't as much of a man of words as I thought I was. Like I wanted to be, but ultimately I realized I was also trying to be like a man of my word to myself, and I wanted to win this game. And so then I got to a point where, as the game moved on, I had to make harder decisions, even though ideally I could have been a man of my word to all of you. I just couldn't.
Yeah, and I think in some ways that was still more to his detriment that it was that late into the tribal where he's kind of admitting that, it's all finally starting to click now that maybe I wasn't a man of my word. And hey, it can happen to the best of you. I mean, you can't necessarily read what everyone's going to predict on the jury and, when you're playing the game 24/7, but I think it's something that if he was able to think, I mean, there's an alternate universe where if Mike's able to figure that out faster and go into the tribal owning it, he could potentially win the game.
Or at least like recognizing it earlier during the tribal itself and then going like, hey, thinking on it now, you guys are right. I wanted to be a man of my word, but I felt like I was being taken advantage. At the time, I felt like I was being taken advantage by you, High. So that's why I only decided to betray your trust, go against you, vote you out. Omer, you're a magnificent player. We all knew we couldn't beat you at the end. At that point in the game, we had to go for you. I had to break my word there. Lindsay, same. You had a high likelihood of getting a majority of these people's votes on the jury. If you got to the end, you're so likable. I wanted to bring you further, but I knew strategically I could not let you get to Final Four and have an opportunity to get yourself to Final Three. Like there's certain things you can do, but it's so hard to critique someone who's been running on empty for 20 plus days.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it may have been a 7-1 vote, but just a few things go differently. And I think at the very least, it's a lot closer.
So from the social aspect of Marianne, what I found very insightful from her was her pitch that, no, like I was taking this game seriously, but I needed to make sure you guys didn't because I saw how the beginning of this game was going. All the people that were under 25 that looked like they could be gamers or were playing what you guys said was too hard were getting taken out. Zach was taken out. Swati was taken out. Tori, you were under like the thumb of everyone the entire game. Like you were in the spotlight. Lydia was taken out. Like it was like there was all these people who got taken out that were similar age to her, that also were super fans, that were also gamers. And she's like, I need to come across differently so that you guys don't put me in that same bucket. I thought that was an excellent answer to the question. Was it real or not? I don't know. Yeah. I would like to believe yes, because she seemed to be someone who was like self-aware.
Yeah, and it was, I think her entirety, that answer is what wrapped it, kind of made it such a good answer, where she said, "Hey, I waited until it was towards the end of the game, and that's where I made my move." So it seems more as this was her overall strategy, because you can see the turning point where, okay, there's a lot more to Marianne and her game that people just didn't see.
And I think what also helped for Marianne was I think you knew she was going to be honest to the best of her ability. Like when Omer asked, like, on Taku, like, you were on the bottom. Like your social game wasn't as great as maybe you thought. And she's like, you're absolutely right. Like I thought I was doing well. I thought everyone liked me. Then we get to the fake merge, and I get that harsh sense of reality, which
Mhm.
made me have to switch up my game. So it was like she recognizes her faults, and then but also says like what she did to correct those faults, which I think is more deserving of a vote ultimately from the eyes of this jury.
Yeah, and I think it's a good way of owning. It's almost like, that standard interview question you get, any job interview. What's your weakness? Is you're able to identify something that was a weakness, but then be able to spin it and say, hey, this is what I've done to correct that. And
Exactly.
just the way that she was able to articulate that, I think went a long way in swaying the jury that, as we saw walking into it, was up in the air.
Yep. Now we're going to move to strategy. Drea is leading that charge and asking like biggest move you made on your own. And I think some of this answer also comes from the for Marianne, some of it comes from the social aspect. So I'll just combine them. She talks about the Omer vote at final 6, and Jonathan tries to go and claim the move, and he's like, "It was actually my idea. I told Mike to go to you." I'm like, dude, Marianne was already thinking about it. Mike was already thinking about it, and pretty much like spoon fed it to you, and you said yes. And also you're on the jury. Shut the fuck up. Like you don't get to claim a move when you're on the jury. That's the rules of the game.
Well, and I'm sure at some point she brought it up more, from a lot of the clips that we didn't see. But I thought it was great when it was brought up again. She was like, rather than saying, hey, just sticking solely with the Omar vote, she was able to talk about how it set her up that she'd be in the best position to make the finals. And so, okay, that's great. I'll keep talking about how Omar, that was my decision to take him out. But because that isn't what everyone wants, I have this other one too. And I think it's something that no one really thought about. I certainly didn't think about it as much until she started talking about it.
Well, here's the thing. I think Jonathan was the vote for Mike. And I
Absolutely.
think if you're Marianne, Jonathan's not voting for anyone but Mike. So I would have been like, hey, okay, you say it's your idea. Did you vote for him? Who were those 3 votes? It was my 2 votes in Romeo. Where did you guys vote? You guys voted Romeo. How did that work? Romeo's still here too. You're sitting over there. Shut the fuck up. And like that's literally how I would have answered, and then moved on with what you were talking about, which is Marianne knew Mike would use that idol on her. She truly wanted to believe it because then it would allow her to show this secret now that she got the merge idol after Tori's boot. Here it is. Here's the paper. Here's everything. No one knew about it but me. Everyone's shocked. Everyone's just like, oh my God, like Marianne has the idol. And she's like, but I didn't even need to play it. Like ultimately I had to hold it instead of using it on Lindsay because I needed to be strategic. And being strategic was if Lindsay goes there, we're not at Final Four work. In no scenario, I wasn't going to be sitting here tonight. Romeo was always going to take me. Mike was always going to take me. And if Jonathan won, he was going to step down and try to beat Mike at fire. And me and Romeo would have been up here. So there was 100% chance I was sitting here tonight.
Yeah. And if that wasn't right, Jonathan would have opened his mouth. So,
yeah. And he knew it was right, so he shut his damn mouth, which is the better look for him. Dude just needs to study up.
how do you really feel, Alex? Let's just get it all
Oh,
off.
wait. Just listen to how Johnny talks, and it's sort of similar.
Fair enough.
But that's Marianne's. Mike, in the strategy part, talks about his first main move was high, even though like even though Omar like planted the seeds, Mike was the one who actively got the votes together to get that blindside done on High. High then asked if he played just emotionally or strategically, and I think Mike honestly answers both, and I think people respect that answer. It's like I sometimes my emotions did get the best of me. I can be self-aware enough to understand that, but that's also where he starts questioning his integrity mid-question, and he's like, maybe I didn't have as much integrity as I thought I did. I wanted to, but then there comes to a point where as I said, I'm trying to win the game. You had to go. Then Romeo's is just more about self-perseverance, and this leads into like what your evolution was. And this is like a very heartfelt answers from everyone. I love that it gets more character, and this was such a character-driven season. It was so nice to have that story in there where Romeo's like, I proved that you have to just keep fighting. Like in my real life before this, I was just tried something else. You didn't have that choice here. So I just kept fighting. I kept trying to survive. I survived. And no matter how hard it was, I didn't give up. That's what I'm going to teach the girls that I help coach is look at what I did. Like I didn't give up. You don't give up on your dreams either. And also being able to accept himself as a free man, no longer has to hide, even from his religious family members who probably now won't accept him because he's outing himself to the world as a gay man. Finally in his 30s, and I thought that was very powerful for him. I feel like he also like, even though he wants to win, he knew he wasn't going to. But like having this moment, I felt was like an important moment for him as a person.
Yeah, he had no real shot at winning the game. He honestly had no real shot at getting any of the votes, but it was a really good answer. And I think if you're going to look at, all right, we know who are those, 0 vote finalists. It was a lot better than most of them that are out there. Like he at least was trying to make the most of his opportunities. He was just in a position with the game that he played where he had no shot at winning against those two.
You're right. Then we go to Mike. He proved old people can come out and compete and play hard and get along with the younger generation, because we have seen in the world there is a gap there, and sometimes we can't meet in the middle. He proved otherwise, and he was able to prove to he hopes to be able to prove to his kids that there's no boundaries to what you can accomplish. I think that was touching. And then that leads to Marianne, who's like, this game breaks down your insecurities. And it helped me realize I still have a lot to learn as I grow, but I used to always self-sabotage myself, to have easy outs, because she hates that feeling of rejection and those negative feelings. She wanted Lindsay to still be in the game because she loved her as a person, loved her as a friend, and felt like not voting with her was betraying of trust and betraying who she was. But she had to live this for herself and put herself first in something and take those risks. And it's just across the board very deep. You even hear from Jeff afterward, he's commending both the final 3 and the jury for just how ultimately respectful everyone was throughout this process. There wasn't a lot of infighting. There wasn't a lot of arguing. There was some back and forth, but it was always in a respectful manner for the game. Just shows the quality of this cast. I don't agree with people who are everyone needs to be bitter and angry because they're out of the game and resent everyone. I think it's healthier, and these people are showing up yeah, they're bitter that they lost, but they're not putting that against the people that are still in the game.
Yeah, I thought we got some really good questions from the jury. And then, just touching back on Marianne, we've seen in the past, you're not going solely on the growth narrative. But I think when you're able to have that be part of your story and be able to claim all these other social and strategic moves, it's something that it's just an extra cherry on top.
Right. Now it's time for the vote. And we see in a 7-1-0 vote, the winner of Survivor 42 was my preseason cast assessment winner pick, because I luckily didn't have the chance to pick Chanel because of Johnny and Cody. Marianne Oketch has won Survivor, the second African-American woman to win the game since Vecepia just over 20 years ago, a week to this day, essentially.
Crazy.
Like, what do you think, like, just initial gut reaction of Marianne, winner of Survivor? What are your thoughts of her as a winner?
I think that she is a good winner. I wouldn't say that she's in the top echelon, but she's definitely nowhere near the bottom either. I think she's kind of in that middle of the pack. Like, she's a solid winner. If you watch the season, you can understand why she won. There's some things that maybe are less than desired, but I don't think you can argue with the outcome or the game that she played. So I'd put her somewhere in that middle section.
I think she's one of my favorite characters as a winner. Like, we've had some very boring winners on very boring seasons. We cannot say season 42 is boring. We can't say the cast was boring. We can't say this winner was boring. And we wouldn't have been able to say the winner was boring if Mike won either. Like, these were two of the more prominently focused on characters throughout the season. I would have been very satisfied with either of them as a winner for this season. It helps just further make this season one of my favorites in a while. It's right up there with David versus Goliath for me for recent seasons. I'm proud of her as a winner. I think she represents the Survivor community and the Survivor superfan very well. I think Jeff likes her as a winner, which to say that he likes a female winner takes a lot. Like, I think he was actually excited about this season, and you could tell. And normally you don't get that type of hype for a season that has a female winner. So, you know, I think they hit it out of the park with this cast. There's obviously things that are going to be remaining in this game moving forward that we're not the biggest fans of, but I'm sure it's something that we'll get used to at the very least moving forward. We'll see what's going to happen on 43 and 44. 43 is probably almost done filming if it isn't done filming already at this point. They're keeping the 26-day games, at least for these next two seasons. They're keeping the risk reward advantages, the earn it merge or earn it to make the merge, but they didn't say like the hourglass. They didn't say the do or die. So they could be just changing up how that format works. They're going to keep 3 tribe formats. They like the smaller tribes. So my only hope is they continue making good parody tribes where we see all of them going to tribal to allow us to see that cast and let the cast shine, because that's the only way that's going to happen.
Yeah, and it's something that hopefully the production realizes is that, you know, they're going to make these different advantages and twists like that, but you can only do so much at once, because where it came from 41 is that's all we talked about was Shipwheel Island or who has this or who has that. Or yeah, there's going to be things that, you know, people want more of the pure version of the game. But if you're going to make those changes, just do it a little bit here or there, because this season where it had a lot of the same things, we didn't have to talk about it every 15 seconds. We could just watch how the players played the game.
Well, hey, we won't ever have to hear him say, at least for a season, we're not going to have to hear him say, well, none of them have seen what happened on season 41. This is what's going to happen. He can't say that for 43. They've seen 41 in its entirety and most of 42. But that wraps up this season's coverage of season 42. Most likely, Johnny and Matt will be working in the background to try to get some of these cast members in for exit interviews, some little deep dives into their games that we'll have here on the channel if we're able to get them. Obviously, we'll most likely still have the Deep Dive podcast with Rubino and Ladies Night with Sarah and Lauren. And if you want other stuff, we will be covering Big Brother as it comes into the summer with Brent and Bob Goodsby. And we are covering the Challenge All-Stars Season 3 from Paramount+. I do not know when this week we will be actually recording that podcast, but you will know, because if you click this bell, click subscribe, and click that bell for all notifications, you'll always be aware of when new podcasts are going to be airing about 30 minutes prior to them airing. as well as catch us on all of your local podcatchers. And if you want more Reality NSFW and more Johnny and Matt, because like I know some people are raising their fists like, why aren't Matt and Johnny here? They're never on anymore, even though Matt was on last week and Johnny was on the week before, because they're doing all events for you people, for us, for all Survivor fans. They've been going around and doing Survivor watch parties, doing trivia, handing out a bunch of prizes, signed buffs, you name it. So always keep your ears out for those opportunities, because those are the best opportunities to meet some of your favorite Survivor players of all time. But if you want more content from us, become a patron at Reality NSFW. It's ad-free, nsfw.com. Become a patron. Matt and Johnny are always covering old seasons of Australian Survivor. Everyone loves Australian Survivor. They do a weekly podcast. They're currently at near the end game of the 2019 season?
2019 season, yeah.
As well as they do a patron Q&A where you can ask them literally anything and everything in between. They will always answer it. It's a fun time. It's our favorite podcast of the week. But until then, that wraps up everything here. So that's Dan. That's out. And I'm out. It was a pleasure following this season with all of you. And we'll see you all next time. Cheers and good night.
And for more Reality NSFW content, visit adfreensfw.com.